social interactions, no matter how many of them I have, are passed through this filter, which is the television. And I'm thinking
You mean the ties you have to celebrities or non-real people? So like Katie Couric's colonoscopy, for example. Everyone runs out and gets a colonoscopy, or Nancy Reagan's mastectomy. Everyone runs out and get a mastectomy because Nancy Reagan gets one, you mean? You mean the effects of like people who really have a relationship with their soap opera star?
I don't think that's your mic.
People who have like a relationship.
You and I don't know each other, but then we become friends. We're in this network. I have a television and you don't. So your interaction with me becomes more important to you than my interaction with you. Because the television is where I have most of my interaction. So just thinking about the way you laid this out, are the results the same if you have a TV versus if you don't have a TV?
I don't know. Of course, we don't have information about TV ownership, but I can answer the question that way. I'm not fully with you on your concern. I'd have to think about it a little bit more. And I'm not sure you're right, but you might be right. But I have to think about it harder before I can respond.
So it's.
But I will say one other thing. We had one guy that wrote to me after our paper came out, and I thought it was crazy at first, and now I'm not sure he was so kooky. This guy writes to me and he says, "I think the reason we're getting fatter is because we have widescreen TVs." I'm thinking, what the hell is this guy doing? I read further down in his essay, and he says that a lot of the old movies, like I Love Lucy and all the programming, was made for TVs of a certain aspect ratio. And then when they're stretched out to fit the widescreen TVs, all the people are made to look fatter. And that this then changes our ideas about what a normal body size is, because we're seeing all these kind of like Oompa Loompa type, stretched out kind of figures in the on the television screen. So I don't know if he's right or not on that, but anyway, the TV example made me think of this. Yeah.
Thanks. I would like to ask, at some slide, I'm not quite sure if all the epidemic effects you looked at, like the emotional part, the obesity and the cigarettes, kind of can be brought down to the same basic mechanisms. So I would like to go back to one of your slides where you were looking at, is it behavior or more change in norms that causes change, for example, in friends? What I would like to think about is these were norms shared about what is the proper body size or what's beautiful or not.
They wouldn't have to be shared. They wouldn't have to be explicitly discussed. They could just be witnessed.
Yes, witnessed. What I was wondering about, if there's actually an agreement to a more independent norm we share in society, and that is the decrease of difference. So if I have a friend who's gaining a lot of weight, I might feel very uncomfortable to be very slender and slim, and just in order to decrease the difference between us, I might be wanting to gain weight. So my question would be,
that's a very good question.
If there's a reference to a more abstract norm, like kind of
equality.
Having this, would it make then sense to have a cross-cultural study with societies where probably those kind of norms are very different? Would that make sense?
It would be a lot of effort. You'd have to spit a lot of blood to answer that question. Like if we'd have to redo the whole study in another situation where we would then, let's say if we found a difference, hang the whole difference on that this is a less equitable society, let's say the American society. I think your general point is excellent, that there might be other kinds of norms, not just norms that drive the convergence. It's not just that I'm copying your body size. It might be that I wish to be similar to you. I'm going to dress alike to you. And it's not that I am copying what you're dressing. It's that I feel like you and I should be dressed similarly or look similar or whatever. So, but our results don't, we're not hanging our hat on the mechanism. And even if your argument is true, it still is under the category of norms instead of shared behavior, so it doesn't subvert the general claim. What I thought you were going to say, which is also an interesting idea, is the fact that even while we have claimed that these norms are important, many people will say, well, Nicholas, our society still privileges thinness. The supermodels are as thin as they ever were. And so how can that be? And the way I square that circle is the following. I say that even though our ideology, I draw a distinction between ideology and norms, even though our ideology is still privileges thinness in our society, people's behavior is much more influenced by the people they know, real people that they interact with, rather than abstract ideological commitments to people on the covers of magazines or on movies and the like. So I think that's how we can make an argument about the spread of norms within a population, even while the ideology might be different. And in fact, you can make similar arguments about all kinds of other things in our society. You know, why do some people, you know, we have a commitment to constitutional rights and to, you know, habeas corpus, and that's like written in our laws and everyone takes it very seriously, but then you might get small groups of individuals who actually violate that. And maybe they're doing it under the influence, if you buy the whole Stanford prison experiment, they're doing it because of reference to the immediate population that they're interacting with. So local norms speak against some kind of broader commitment we might have. Yeah?
So is that what's happening in Washington?
I set myself up for that a little bit. I mean, I think there is a kind of sense in which people would do things like in a riot that they would never do if they were just by themselves. A kind of a mob psychology can take over, where people really behave badly because they think they have a kind of anonymity, or they think the rules have changed, or everyone around them is behaving badly, that they would actually not do if they were acting in isolation. So I think these ideas that we're discussing today in a health setting actually could be of broader relevance in our society.
I just wanted to follow up on the norm mechanism, because that's something
we were talking about that earlier.
that I'm interested in. And I think, I don't think this is inconsistent to any of the things you said, but sometimes the norm comes not just from you adopting either the idea or the behavior, but that other people then sanction you when you don't follow it. And that kind of follows from this, that it may not be so much that you and I want to be similar, but other people might react to our dissimilarity, and that then reinforces or punishes certain kinds of behavior. And I think it's interesting to think about how that might flow through for these kinds of behaviors.
That's an excellent example, and one of the famous examples of this is the notion of triadic closure. So if you imagine this person, this young woman in high school, A, and she has two friends, B and C. Now the question is, under which circumstance, and here, in circumstance number 1, the two friends B and C don't know each other, and in circumstance number 2, the two friends B and C know each other. In which of these two circumstances do you think person A is going to be more likely to obey and do what her friends tell her to do? 2, because these people can communicate with each other and enforce a norm on her that is much harder for them to do here, where they can't coordinate. This is a notion of triadic closure that the sociologist George Simmel introduced 100 years ago. We're actually looking at this a little bit in Facebook, in our work with Facebook networks. And it relates very strongly to what Denise just said. But there was work done by Peter Behrman using the AdHealth data set that suggests that girls that are located in this type of a situation are more likely to have suicidal ideation than young women who are located in this circumstance. Because here they get less consistent messages from their friends, whereas here they get a more consistent message from their friends, are less likely to be buffeted by contrarian views. So there's a kind of coordination that occurs outside, and it's not just about the dyad, it's about what other individuals are speaking to the dyad.
Maybe we can take one more question, one or two. Yeah, there's two.
Mine is is this on? Hi. It's just a very specific question. I was wondering, in reference to your charts and the studies that you did you study a specific age group, or did it kind of fluctuate?
We only studied adults. People had to be age into our cohort. They had to be 21 or older, but the age range was enormous. It was like from 20 to 70 or something. And then they aged across the next 30 years. But the cohort was replenished with the birth of new members, or the addition of the Generation 3 cohort that I talked about in 2002, or the Omni cohort in 95.
Any last question? Okay. Well, thank you very much.